I mean, I could just talk to them behind me, but they have so many like
As you say, yeah.
traditions. Yeah. They have so many traditions and like almost like laid out rules for how to like
Yeah.
act and how to react to all
Hmm.
these things. That it's yeah, no, that's like just another like fascinating thing about like watching stuff like this or The Sopranos,
Yeah, and there's
Goodfellas.
that
Just like
huge cultural like the idea of like immigrating from the old country and like
mm-hmm.
overcoming something that the culture really holds like um I don't know, chip on their shoulder for, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, and they're still all very like connected to the old country too. You know, to Sicily. It's not like they've left and like put that all behind them to start their new lives. It's still very much interconnected with yeah, even like the people, like their connections in Sicily. Yeah, it's I don't know. It's pretty wild. That's why I'm interested to hear what you have to say about like the since you read the book and everything because I'm sure there's
Yeah, I
even
will
more
definitely
detail
bring
into all of that.
yeah. Oh yeah, I like yeah, it's just like expanding on everything so it does feel like yeah, you just know a lot more and like when
Mm-hmm.
the movie will have like a scene or like a 10-second moment, the book will have like a whole like few pages on that sort of thing. But I
Mm-hmm.
also don't want to like make this like a whole like adaptation podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll like bring it in when necessary, but I'm not gonna constantly be like, you know how the book did this scene was that, you know what I mean? I'm not gonna
Yeah,
be like
yeah.
that. You know, like how is the book different from the movie? That whole like
There's only so
never
much I
e-
care
the
about that. Yeah.
never ending exhausting question that people like to ask. Not going to be
Mm-hmm.
doing that much today, but I will have a lot to bring in. Yeah, because I did read the book and then I was like I will watch the movie again, you know, after because why not? And then I because I felt so immersed as it is, and then I was like, you know, I have so much of this now in my head. I might as well do a podcast on it. I'm sure John's down to watch The Godfather as well.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Um, I think I first saw The Godfather when I was maybe 20.
Wow. Yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah, it's
I was definitely like early college. I think
yeah, yeah.
18, 19. Yeah.
So it was always like a mystical movie that I like heard of, you know, I knew of, and I really didn't
Mm-hmm.
know anything about it other than like it just seemed dark and like mysterious and revolved around this one man played by Marlon Brando, of course, and that he was always on a desk negotiating. It's how he was always like, whenever
Yeah.
people would like copy this movie or spoof it, that's what it would be. It would be like that, the opening scene, you know, on the wedding day, and that's really
Yeah.
what I knew of about this movie. Other than that, you know, really didn't understand. I didn't know it was about the mafia. Or, I mean, I probably didn't even know what that was before, you know, when I was a kid, even. So yeah, it
Yeah.
was too complex for me to even just comprehend what it was.
Yeah. That's really all I saw too. Is just I mean, you see it everywhere. Just Marlon Brando sitting in the chair,
Yeah,
holding that little cat in his lap.
yeah.
Just like those images. That's all I ever really saw about it. Yeah, and
One
I
of the
figured
first
it
things I
was.
saw was a Rugrats thing where they were like doing The Godfather, and that's like the first thing I knew of for The Godfather was that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's so many like spoofs of so many just like small details of these movies that you I don't know that you realize after watching this more and just watching anything. It's like wow, they even spoofed this small little part from The Godfather. Like there's so
Yeah,
many different um
yeah,
just cultural references taken from it. And all yeah, all I before I saw it, all I really knew was like, okay, yeah, everyone says it's like the greatest movie ever. Like
yeah. It's
it's
known
so
by
great.
popular mainstream audiences as the greatest movie of all time, you know,
Yeah.
indefinitively.
So I was like, okay, yeah, like, I get it. I'm sure it's amazing. But yeah, I don't know. It's I just felt like I got it. So I wasn't necessarily like clamoring to see The Godfather as like a teenager. But you know, as I started to get I'm sure like you more into movies and everything, then I had to see it, and then I really got it. And then after seeing it, a couple more times too, that's when you really, I don't know, yeah, that's when you really
Yeah, the
start to
first time I
appreciate
was
it more.
actually, I will say I was bored.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah. I think like every time like Vito Corleone was in a scene, I was pretty into it because I was like, wow, like look at this guy, you
It's the
know,
Godfather. Yeah.
holy shit, you know. But I really didn't understand any of the like family drama or the politics of the
Mm.
criminal world. And like when I remember when Michael Corleone goes to Sicily, um, and I think he's in like the town of Corleone in there, where his father grew up, and he's just walking through like the hills and the wine country with those two guys. I remember just being so fucking bored when I first saw this movie. I
Yeah.
was like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
They're just
Yeah.
walking around.
Yeah. And
It was
it
too
was so
much for
hard.
me to comprehend, you know?
Exactly. It's just too much to follow because and it's because it's so good and like
Yeah.
everything, it's not just some, generic gangster movie. It's really so like layered in depth, and there's everything leading
Yeah.
to everything like happens because something else happens. And so it was so hard for me to like, okay, like so hard for me to figure out on my own why they're having this meeting, why, oh my god, why did they just kill him,
Hmm.
why, like all this different thing, all these
Yeah.
different
Yeah. It's a
details.
lot hitting you at once, much less like because it's like an epic and it's like a tragedy, and it's
Hmm.
just there's so much to the first Godfather, that especially on first watch you're not going to fully understand it, even though you can tell there's a lot going on. um, like I remember like when there's the end montage of him having all the guys killed. When I first saw this movie, I was just exhausted at that point, and I'm just watching all these men being slaughtered, and he's taking the vows of being the godfather to the kid. I'm just like, wow. I don't know what the hell is happening.
Because another thing with like this, and when I first started watching The Sopranos, is it's like there's so many characters and they
Yeah.
all look
Yeah.
similar and they all have these Italian names. It's really
Yeah.
hard to
Like
keep
this is
track
a
of who's
really
who.
ensemble piece, when the
Yeah.
Godfather Part 2 is not. And that's like I feel like they're
Yeah.
compared a lot. They're compared a lot, and while like maybe the cinematography is the same, and the actors the same, the director is the same, I think they're very different movies. Like if you watch the second one next, you'll see they're very different.
Hmm.
Because just one being an ensemble and the other one just being like the isolation of Michael Corleone. So for like 2.5 hours.
Yeah, really. Yeah, it's definitely, and even this is it's the first time I watched it too, I was maybe a little disappointed because uh Marlon Brando as the Godfather is hardly in it too. And that's all you
Yeah.
think about when before you see it is like, oh, this is all about him, but really it's about the whole family, and even more so Michael. And then the second one, yeah, it's all about Michael. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like surprised when he gets shot, and
Yeah,
then you see him recover, and then but start to be old and not himself at all anymore. You really only see him as himself for like a couple scenes.
yeah. And even so, the first time I watched it, when they shoot him in the street, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, we're barely into this movie and the
Yeah.
main guy
Yeah.
died already. But
Yeah, and there's so many movies within a movie, so you're like each character has their own little short film, and in a way like spliced together.
yeah, yeah, you definitely I don't know. Coppola does a great job of I feel like taking this like huge epic story with all these
Hmm.
people, and like still getting you to understand each of the characters early on too.
Yeah.
Um, from Michael, Sonny, Vito. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever heard that like interview on like why he decided to like take on this movie. Um, Like there's like
I
the
don't think so.
backstory. The backstory is like mainly like he needed to like make a hit, you know, because he was struggling and stuff like that. Like it was just about time to make him something commercial.
Hmm.
Um, and I feel like this movie was made around when Star Wars is made, and I think like Coppola and George Lucas were in like a similar track with Godfather and Star Wars in a way, where commercial success was on the mind. And
Yeah.
apparently, like the Godfather was like a popular book, I think, and then Coppola wasn't even that into it. But then he saw like what he mainly saw of the book was like of like classical like story of like a king and his three sons, and then like each son has their own like one of his qualities basically.
Hmm.
um
Yeah.
and yeah, so you can see that just I don't know a lot in this. Like Sonny has the just like maniacal anger aggression to like a hardcore level. Michael has like the brains and the patience and the discipline, and then I think like what's his other kid called, Fredo.
Fredo. Yeah.
Fredo, it has like the kind of weak, gentle innocence that like like the jolly goofiness, I think it is. Um, yeah, so yeah, like I don't know, that just like opened my eyes a lot about like um, what this
Yeah. Wow.
story is really all about.
Wow. That's super interesting. Yeah. That's so
Like
obvious. I can't
the
believe.
mo- the movie's
Like no.
very much like it's like a transfer of power movie, you know, and
Yeah.
like if you know like a lot of the time, like if you notice as all the characters are introduced, there's like well, at least in the book, Sonny is very much known for his temper, so he's like known in the book, he's like not known as like I don't know, he's not known as a worthy successor to the Don because he is like not disciplined. He can fly off the rails any minute. He's like
Mm,
too much bloodshed type of guy. And then Fredo's like known as being stupid and weak. So, but and then Michael's not even like interested in the family business, even though they've always like regarded him as smart and stuff like that.
yeah. Hmm.
Um, so yeah, that's just like it's just an interesting setup of a transfer of power, like along with like the character arc of Al Pacino's character in this movie. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, yeah. As like the first time I watched it, I was like disappointed to see that which I thought he had died right away when they shoot Vito in the street. But then you realize that is like so important to Michael's arc, um, because it's like in the beginning he's talking so much about how he's not interested in you know joining what the family does, and he wants to um,
yeah,
you know take the he just doesn't want to be involved pretty much. But
right,
then this has to happen in order for Michael to start getting involved, and for I guess like the trajectory of his life change.
right. So I guess we could start with the opening scene.
Mhm.
Oh man, dude, there's too many character names in this movie. Well, the opening scene that John is actually in right now.
Yeah, I'm there. I can ask around for names.
Right? Who's meeting him right
So
now?
we have, oh, you can't even see my hand on here. We have Robert Duvall Hagen over here. Hagen, um, Fredo,
Yes,
Carlo,
sir.
Connie.
Nice.
Oh, I'm doing.
Nice.
I don't know. Oh, I
That's
can't
his
think of the
wife.
name.
That's
That's his wife. Yeah,
Mama Corleone, I think she's
Mama
mainly known
Corleone.
as. Yeah.
Vito, Sonny. That doesn't. There's Michael over there, but I can't. I don't
That
think
I
that's
think
Kay
that is
next
a
to him.
bridesmaid. That all right, yeah, Kay is in the orange. The bridesmaid, I think that is the bridesmaid that
Yeah.
Sonny Corleone has sexual relations with.
Ah, that's right. Yes, and this might be Diane Keaton, right there. I can't tell. Yeah.
Well, either way, there's a guy in the office with Vito Corleone, and then the first
Yes.
shot, it's like a voiceover of him telling a story about his daughter and how she basically got assaulted by a bunch of guys and how the justice system failed him. And I mean, we'll start off by saying something very good right off the bat. I mean, I think that that this is just a really good opening monologue, just him telling the story and the way he's kind of in the dark. You don't know what's around him at all, and they're just slowly zooming out on him as he tells the story. Like, it really gives me goosebumps, just this opening shot. I think it's so
Yeah.
good.
Oh, it totally is. Yeah.
And then he's like, I went to the police like a good American, but they did nothing. Like, he starts to cry. He has like a tissue handed to him as you see like the over shoulder of the Don kind of like gesturing, all right, give this man a tissue, and then like finally when he finishes the story, he's like, we must go to Don Corleone. That like finally there's like a shot of Don Corleone, and Brando's just got this like big like cheek makeup, like he clearly the puffy cheek thing, and he looks like he doesn't like give a fuck about anything in this opening shot. It's pretty funny. And then he goes on his like he responds by saying that you don't offer me friendship. You don't even think to call me Godfather. And
so many famous like quotes just in this.
It's like probably the most famous scene in the movie, what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it kind of also just like it really just sets up the whole world that we're in now and how it works. And basically it all revolves around this guy, and it kind of revolves around a philosophy of I don't know, just the like a lie in America, like that you could come there and make it, and like the system's set up for you when you're really like you can't trust things like cops, the Justice Department, like you can't find jobs yourself in the real world. So this guy's got his whole own world where he does that for people. It's kind of like in Goodfellas, where it's like described how what Paul Sorvino actually does. He's like, Paulie protects people who can't go to the cops, like he's like the Justice Department or FBI for wise guys or something like that.
Yeah, and it's just you just basically see all these people coming up to him asking for help. Like they're like king or whatever, and he's basically letting everyone off easy and doing what he can to help.
And it's like it's kind of like both evil, but it's also like really like beautiful at the same time, because the man is really seeking like, I don't know, he's just seeking good relations with people, and he clearly is just a friendly man of the people as well, even though he has all this power and connection to make most things happen.
Yeah, and that's the thing with these like the lore of like the mafia and everything, is that it's so dark, but then at the root of it, it's all about like family and relationships.
And we're watching it too, like at the highest level here, at the highest level of mafia, like this is considered to be the most powerful mafia dude in the world. When like say in Scorsese movies, it's like low level street guys who sometimes clear like a heist that's like 500,000, like and the Vito Corleone's running like a multi-million-dollar corporation, with all his like business ventures, and they're like at the end they're buying hotels on the like across the strip of Vegas, because they have that much capital basically.
And there's so much talk about how it's it's business, it's like they're almost like an investment firm or something, that's just
well, and they have Robert Duvall is like one like in the book they talk about how he is such a, I don't know, he was like a really bright lawyer, top of his class type of guy. Went to like Vito put him through law school, and I think he like had a chance to be at a top firm, but then he ended up working in the family business, and so then he's because that like that for him is like a sought after thing. And I
Yeah.
think it goes with his philosophy of seeing it as noble, especially if you're escaping into this, part of society.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a reason they call it organized crime because it's it's
Yeah,
organized. They have a full
yeah,
organization going. Yeah, it's
yeah.
so I actually have
Just
a
funny,
question about Puzo. Was he
about Mario Puzo. Yeah.
yeah, so how did he like write the book? Was it like based on any specific like family or did he like have experience in the mob in any
Yeah.
way? Do you know? I don't know. I'm
To
just
be honest, all I
curious.
know, there's like a forward in the book where uh it talks about like there's like a forward by Coppola and Mario Puzo's son and stuff like that. So you do get a little insight. Um and he just needed to write something successful at the time as
Hmm.
well. So he decided to write like a gangster movie. Um, but like that is like an interesting question you bring up because the book does read like, okay, did this guy like invent organized crime? Because like he
Yeah.
knows so much about the whole trajectory and he's got all these families with their own backstories in it. And so I'm not really sure exactly. Like I know this is very much fiction.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
I'm sure there was some people, like a number of people in the news that inspired it.
Yeah.
There's actually a part in the book where like I don't know, they talk about how the New York families look down on like Capone and the Chicago gangs saying they have like no honor and were violent and like reckless and stuff like that. So like when the Don wants to do the meeting of the five families, they decide they don't invite the Chicago gang. Like they invite people from Ohio and like California and stuff like that, but they leave the Chicago gangs out of it.
Interesting.
Uh, yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Never knew anything about that. Cool. Yeah. I don't know. That
So,
was a random
so
question. I thought you were saying something else before I cut you off.
now we'll just go back to the movie, I guess.
Yeah.
So he decides he's gonna basically fuck up those guys for this man who needs some justice because his daughter is fucked up for life, and he asks for a
Yeah.
favor that he'll want one day, and then we cut out to the yard where there's a giant ass wedding going on, and
Yeah.
that you find out later from Robert Duvall saying that he's saying to his wife that he's why she's like, why are you working so much today? He's like, no Sicilian can refuse a request on his daughter's wedding day. And
Yeah.
you see all the people like lining up, and Luca Brasi like going like, Don Corleone, I am happy to be here on your day. And then plus all the characters get introduced at the wedding. Michael comes in with his girlfriend, and he you could tell he feels like an outsider-ish because he doesn't
Hmm.
really say hi to anyone immediately. He's kind of just observing, and I just love the way he like kind of subtly like tells her about his family and how it works.
Hmm.
um like oh, that guy, yeah, he works for my father sometimes. Uh-huh. And she's like, so what does he do?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. He's like, and then tells the story, Luca Brasi, killed the man. And it's like, that's my family.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very like natural conversation that's also giving the viewer like a little bit more backstory on everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, talks about Tom's a consigliere, advisor to his
Hmm.
dad. Um, and then there's always this thing brought up about how Tom's not full blown Sicilian. So he's,
Yeah.
it's not like he's smart, but not a Sicilian, but he's smart.
Yeah, and then um I guess as the wedding continues and goes on, um who else comes in? Johnny
Well,
Fontaine then?
eventually Johnny Fontaine shows up, and so this is a point where I really realized that, um, like I don't know, like it's when the wedding, you're like, you realize it's like, all right, this is absurd. Like this is a powerful, like this family has it, like all the connections since they have a celebrity of this caliber. Obviously we don't know who Johnny Fontaine is, but just by like the way he enters, the way people go crazy, and then there's that one shot across, like there's a pan across like three girls as they're watching him sing, and you could tell they just can't believe it, that this
Yeah.
guy's here. It's just like, wow, this family's really absurd.
Yeah.
Yep.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, yeah, he's the godson of Vito.
Vito.
So
Yeah.
like, he's been looking at him watching over him his whole life, and I think he even as Michael says, he got him into show business through his connections too.
And I was reading something about how his character is supposedly based on Frank Sinatra, and apparently Sinatra hated that fact or whatever. So there was something I read about how Sinatra was like campaigning against the movie before it came out because he thought it made him look like a sham or whatever, and
a fool.
Like, it just seems so like sensitive and petty. It's like, even if it's it is based on him, it's
right.
It's a fictional story, but
I mean, and there's so many singers like this back then.
Yeah, and it's not like Johnny Fontaine was it's not like totally clear as to how big of a star he is. He's trying to get help to get into the movie business,
right?
Right.
So, yeah, and then then it cuts to the office, and like after this big moment of like glory, you see a glorious big star, and then you could see this guy's kind of just like life is falling apart, and he's kind of a degenerate who sleeps with tons of women and drinks all the time, and talks about how it's all falling apart, and it's just hilarious because he does feel pathetic, like especially when the Don kind of reacts by like saying, "You gotta act like a man. You could act like a man."
Yeah, and this is when Vito utters the famous "I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse" line.
Yeah, and I think that's like mainly it for the wedding. They take like the family photo that you. I think that's the last thing that we see is the family photo. And then we cut to like Tom immediately going to Hollywood, and it's got that fun boppy jazz, that da, 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 da. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that's showbiz jazz.
Yeah, it's only in this segment too. Like the rest of it is the really absurd like Italian music, like at the wedding it's like da 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 da, and like Marlon Brando's dancing with like, is it his daughter? Is it the father-daughter dance?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and like that's like just such an epic moment too, because of how tall Marlon Brando is, and like how straight he stands up doing the waltz. Like he just looks like the king of a kingdom in that scene.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean through that whole wedding, he's he's the guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So then Hollywood, he meets with the is he a studio head or a producer? He's one of those guys, right? He's like I think he's a producer.
Head of the studio.
Yeah.
But he he denies it. They have the big like seemingly like classic Hollywood like argument about who can be a star, who's gonna make
and he's like trying to destroy him because of personal things, and Tom's trying to flex the muscle of the Corleone family, but this guy, Hollywood guy, isn't having it. He doesn't buy it, and then the horse is in his bedroom, and it's terrifying, and you finally you feel the reach of the Don, not only the reach of the Don, but also like the strategy of the Don. You're like, oh wait, this is a violence is how they like get ahead, pretty much.
Yeah, and that's the first time I watched it, I was kind of I didn't expect, the whole beginning of the movie to just be like a wedding and just like sort of politics
Yeah.
in a way
Hmm.
going on. So this was the first moment where I was watching. I was like, oh, okay, so this is like a gangster, like
Yeah.
violent crime movie. It's not just all family politics. So then, as like an 18-year-old who really just wanted to see
You're like, the death count is
action.
crazy in this
Yeah,
movie.
yeah. I want to see so many guns and dead bodies. Yeah, this is like, oh, okay. So this was like helping me get on board. But yeah, subsequent viewings, I see like this is, yeah, like you said, this is the strategy, the power that they take over people, that they will cut the head off of this guy's horse and put it in his bed
Right.
as like
Yeah.
intimidation.
And there's a great like dissolve to um Marlon Brando's face just sitting in his office after that.
Mm.
Yeah, Coppola does a lot of dissolves. If you ever watch Apocalypse Now again, you'll see that like almost the whole movie on the way to Marlon Brando in that movie is dissolve of just like, and then Martin Sheen doing voiceover and be like, we made it farther up the river, but we didn't know what was going to happen next. And that's like the whole movie. And it is so repetitive and ridiculous, and like obviously trying to be like a hallucinogenic movie, like psychedelic type movie, but it's also so great. So that's
Mm-hmm.
that's a quick thing for me on Apocalypse Now. But yeah, so they dissolve back to the family, and you see like Sonny and Tom and Vito working together. Um, and it like incites the deal on narcotics and how this family wants to meet about narcotics, and Vito's old school and he's like, no narcotics, it's a dirty business. And Sonny's like, there's a lot of money in narcotics, Dad. And he's um and then
Yeah.
they have them, and also Tom says, he says that if they don't get into narcotics, they're gonna like risk like everything they have 10 years from now because of how much money is involved and all that. And
Mm.
um
And isn't
but yeah,
then isn't God, what's his name? The the narcotics guy. He's trying to
Is it
get,
Salazzo?
so yes, Salazzo. Yeah, yeah. He's trying
Salazzo,
to
yeah.
get. He's, I guess, trying to get on their good side because
The political
the
political
yeah,
connections, yeah.
the Don is so
Yeah.
connected,
Right.
politics and everything too. So they want some
Yeah.
more
And you
security. Yeah.
find out later, like at the meeting of the five families, when like, because Vito says, that he's by him not interfering with his business and not giving his political connections, it's not a big deal. But like one of the other Dons calls him out and basically says like, well, yeah, if you had as many, it's easy to say that when you have as many like political connections as Vito and nobody else does. You know what I mean? So it's clearly like he holds this over everyone's head
Yeah.
um,
Mm-hmm.
as just power over everyone. So that when he doesn't offer like when he doesn't offer his political connections is like a bigger deal, I think, than we realize.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And then this is sort of the him refusing, sort of the catalyst for almost everything else that happens uh, after it. Um, but yeah, so then I mean, after this doesn't, and then I think this is when uh, Luca Brasi is basically trying to get
Yeah,
more information.
he sends him to look out for Luca Brasi. Yeah. So in the
Hmm.
book, there's a lot on Luca Brasi in the book for some reason. Like Luca Brasi's known as like basically, and we don't see it in this movie really, but he's known as like the most dangerous man. So in the book,
Hmm.
it's basically known that since he has Luca Brasi, like he also is like feared because he has Luca Brasi.
Wow.
Yeah, Luca Brasi is just like kind of a like a known as like a psychotic killer that you hit like the only like the Don knows how to control.
Wow. I feel like you don't really get that much about him
Yeah,
other than
you
he's like
get
the
like
enforcer
yeah,
or
and you get
whatever.
like Michael's like if you read a lot into what Michael's story to Kay at the wedding about Luca Brasi, like, it's just like a violent story, that violent thing he did for the Don to help him get what he
Hmm.
wanted. And like, if you read into that, it really does show though that like, all right, this is the real muscle of the group. Like when they
Yeah.
turn to someone for like real bad shit, it goes to Luca Brasi.
Yeah. Who then is um
Yeah, he
after
meets
trying
Salazzo
to
at the
infiltrate.
bar. Yeah, and
He's
they
then
basically, yeah, oh, nice, yeah, they do
yeah.
that.
Yeah. I
They do,
saved
yeah,
3 pictures for this, and this is one of them. Yeah. But yeah. Yeah, they do that, which then yeah, leads to I guess what happens next is the big assassination attempt on Vito,
yeah. At the
where
fruit stand.
the fruit stand where his bodyguard called in sick, so Fredo
Yeah,
is
like
basically his only
his driver
protection.
who, yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
forget what he's
Fredo is
called.
just very incompetent
Oh, yeah,
at that job.
yeah. You could tell that like just any violence or gunshots, it just makes him shake.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah.
and all you need
So
is just a
also,
quick shot of him fumbling with the gun to get that.
right.
Yeah.
So and then he gets sent to Vegas. And then
Hmm.
in the book, it's kind of covered that like, I don't know, like after, I feel like the Don never really trusts Fredo again after this moment. So that's like kind of why he sends him to Vegas. And then he's even looked at worse in Vito's eyes because he's known in Vegas for just having too much sex. And so like since Vito's old school and he likes respect of women, he finds he looks down on Fredo for his for just the way he behaves in
Womanizing.
Vegas. He kind of
Yeah.
becomes a womanizing degenerate, and I think he like gets girls like pregnant and stuff like that.
Wow. Yeah. So that's all in the book. All of that backstory.
Yep, yeah, yeah. But
Interesting.
like
Yeah.
they mention it in here like once, like when
Hmm.
later when Michael's having his meeting with the casino owner to buy him out, and he's
Oh
like,
yeah, yeah.
uh you push my brother around, and he's like, hey, he didn't mean it, Mike. He's like, of course I'm pushing around, he's banging cocktail waitresses like a, just
That's right.
something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
So they kind of brush over it quick, and I don't know, you could just tell like Fredo's that type of guy, just like a Vegas like degenerate type of guy.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's sort of like the forgotten son in a way, and he
Yeah, and he's like
acts out
clearly
because
like
of
he's
it.
very spoiled to growing up
Hmm.
in this area. Uh, so yeah, like Vito getting shot turns this world on its head, and Michael kind of comes home, and he's really sucked into the world now.
Hmm.
But Sonny and Tom are kind of running things,
Yeah,
and Michael kind of at first, because he's still not committal, he's not always said he doesn't want to get involved. They kind of make him the errand boy of the family, since like while they cover the real business. So he's like, I think he's there for like a good amount of time, just helping out at home, answering, like they always say, answering the phone and stuff like that.
hmm.
Um, but I think like that's like it's this movie's own subtle way of like just saying Michael's like, it's like Michael's interning for the family
Yeah,
business, like he's like learning it.
yeah. He's involved, but not like so directly involved. Because yeah, like
Exactly.
he's still like a civilian in a way into like
Yeah.
everyone's
Yeah.
eyes, but he's
Yeah.
in a way he's still getting prepped. Yeah,
Yeah. Which is why he's also able to have the meeting when we get there, is like because he's known as a civilian.
yeah. He's like the only one, you know, of these, especially of these brothers, who you could
Yeah.
have just a regular meeting with. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, and Sonny's known to be a murderer.
yeah, yeah. And okay, so after that, what happens?
Huh. Well, there's just a lot
Well,
of stuff at the house for a while. Kay, Diane Keaton kind of misses Michael a lot because he's disappeared into his family.
Mm-hmm.
And he decides to go see his dad one night at the hospital after seeing Kay at a hotel, and he realizes that the guards aren't there. So he gets worried, and like this scene is huge because it's when you start to see him like really like like that he really fears for his dad and he really loves him, and you see like a guilt that he hasn't been around, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I like, my theory is that through the first movie, Michael's like arc in the first movie through his like kind of like descension in the second movie, I would say I feel it's all just based around that feeling of protection, just and just protecting those he loves, that he's willing to do anything really.
Mm-hmm.
And it's why he ends up taking over the family, is just due to like the need to protect his family. And it's kind of all just this is all just this whole feeling is introduced in this scene where he moves the bed with the nurse to another room.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's when he starts to like assume responsibility for taking care of everyone, because usually that's his father, and he definitely is the most like him in that sense. And he then pulls off I guess a perfect I don't know, what do you want to call it, but like maneuver to get Salazzo's men to um
Yeah, he
to
gets
get
that
them to
guy.
keep moving.
He gets the bake. He's like, the guy comes in. He's like, I'm the baker,
Yeah.
here to
Just this
see
nice,
him.
friendly guy just paying
Yeah,
his
yeah.
respects.
And he's like, and he immediately is like willing to do anything for him.
Hmm.
Um, and like they're outside, and then they're outside, and I think the guy realizes, oh wait, this is like a dangerous ass thing we're doing, where we're like literally fighting off guys, like doing a stare down, and you
Yeah.
see the guys like shaking so much after, and that Michael is not actually shaking at all. Like he's
Yeah.
like very
Very
steady during that scene.
calm, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he tosses his flowers, and he's like, yeah, he's just so like prepared for the situation. And maybe it's you
Yeah.
know being in this family along with being in the military or something. But
Right,
yeah,
right. And
he's
I think he is just doesn't he, didn't he go to like a really good school too? So isn't he just like
yeah,
bright? Like just went to
yeah,
one of those
hmm,
famous universities, like I don't know about Cambridge, but like one of those types.
a well-known place. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um
and I guess while all this is going on, then too is um, it's like Salazzo is then trying to convince Tom trying to convince Tom to convince Sonny to take them up on their deal now, because he's threatening him with all of this. And
right.
Salazzo's pissed off because they shot him, they shot Vito a ton of times and didn't kill him.
Yeah.
And then this leads to Sonny then hitting back with
Yeah,
their
he's like Michael comes back to the house one day and he's like, we hit them back today.
yeah. And I guess this is when Michael really tries to take I don't know, tries to prove himself in a way where he volunteers
Yeah.
to do the meeting, and
Yeah, and you
Sonny
could tell
gives him
he's
the
truly
typical
offended by the like hypocrisies of um like Salazzo and the crooked cop,
the
like,
cop. Yeah.
yeah, who just pretty much destroys his face.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot about that last part at the hospital when the cops show up.
Yeah. Yeah, he kind of
Yeah.
calls him out because he could tell, like, all right, he's like, because he took the guards away that were supposed to be there, so he knows this is a corrupt cop immediately.
Hmm.
Um, and you could tell he just wants like revenge in a way as well. Like there's a lot of anger in him. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, that's, I mean, that's what inspires him to take on this meeting, because he wants to prove himself, but he also wants revenge for his father.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of it goes back to like the whole mafia thing of like it's very like dark and violent, but then it's all sort of based on morals and like a code in a way too. You know, like Michael sees this as the right thing to do is to, you know, I don't know, make things right for his family, but it's just not, you know, it's in a very violent, inhumane way.
Right.
But yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Um
And the meeting itself is like so it's so iconic. Like you, whenever cinematic moments appear online or something like that, or like I've seen so many analyzed reviews of this scene where they're like, showing the camera zooming in on Michael and his eyes going around as he's uh holding off firing, standing up and firing there, and you hear like the screeching of the train, and it's like so intense, and he just does it.
yeah.
Yes, it's just one of
Yeah.
really classic movie scene.
Yeah. And just him, you know, him going to the bathroom and just that long like pause he takes. He steps out of the bathroom, has that long pause where he just stands there and
Yeah,
looks at him.
yeah.
It's the the
Salazzo kind
tension
of
is
looks back
so
at
great.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I guess even before that too, it's like, you know, you don't have to talk too much about this, but it's just nice seeing him like sort of get more like ingrained with the people and the family. Like Clemenza is like showing him how to shoot the gun, basically how to like make
Yeah,
a
yeah.
clean killing.
And
Yeah,
doesn't Clemenza also show him how to like cook? Like that quick
yeah,
scene where it's like you put your sausage, you put your meatballs in, it's a little
yeah.
wine, like I've
They
always
fry
loved
a
that scene.
sausage. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. This is how you cook for 10 people.
yeah. Clemenza is a great character.
Right.
Big fan of him.
And I think he's been with like Vito for a while. I don't know exactly, but I think he's just known for being there since the beginning.
Yeah, yeah. You know, you can trust Clemenza. That's for sure. Um, yeah, and then okay,
Well,
there's so much
I don't
to
know
piece
what's
together.
between him going to Italy. I feel like well, like I think there's a point where the Don is like finally home again, and
Yeah,
then he's like, but he's still pretty weak, can barely talk, and then he asks where Michael is, and then he informs him that like that it was Michael that that killed Salazzo and McCluskey, and you can see him just like there's like I don't know, you like Vito's like really sad that whenever
yeah.
Michael is somehow involved with the family business,
Because he even
which I
admits
think,
he doesn't want Michael to, you know, get
yeah,
involved either.
right, right.
Yeah,
But I also feel like I don't know. It's like he's conflicted about that too, because you could tell that Michael in a way is like his favorite son,
hmm
and that he's sad that he hasn't been around, and so it's also kind of sweet later when he's like teaching him the business, and he's getting
yeah,
older. It's kind of so it's I don't know. It's not like but he also like the last thing he says to him is he wish he became like a politician or a
a
just
governor. Yeah,
something else, yeah, like
yeah,
uh yeah, yeah, which maybe reflects his own feelings on just like the fact that he sees that he did what he had to do, but what he really sees more so as a noble life is being like a truly like revered person of society who's not like doing everything behind the in the shadows.
yeah. Right. Yeah, yeah. And
But then
I
like we cut to Sicily stuff.
he's in exile in Sicily, and yeah, not a bad place to be exiled. Um,
Right, right. It's like a paradise. The
yeah,
sun's
right. Why would you
beaming.
want to go back?
It's
Yeah,
beautiful. So before when I said that like that I couldn't like believe how boring the Sicily stuff was when I was like first saw this movie. It's like my favorite thing now in the
Oh
movie.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Now
fucking
it's
love it.
yeah, it's such a great like break from everything else that's going on
Hmm.
with the family. It's it's just back
Yeah,
focusing on Michael, and he's falling in love with this
right.
Italian woman.
Right. And the it's when the score too just like really rocks it, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It really
Yeah.
rocks it. Like it just and it's all these shots of him and like his two like shepherds they're called. They're just like walking
Hmm.
along the hillside. They're like, "Oh, we'll walk to Corleone today. I'd rather walk." And then he's
Yeah.
like it's just like "Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na," and it's just like that over and over again. And when I'm watching, I'm like, "Oh my God, this is the best."
Hell yeah. Yeah. And there's actually there's a good Anthony Bourdain Parts Unknown episode where they go to Sicily and they shoot it in a similar way to
Oh,
The
that's funny.
Godfather and
Yeah.
Godfather Part Two, and it has a lot to do with I don't know, the Sicilian view of the mafia and the Americanized like showbiz version of the mafia too,
Oh,
and
yeah,
it's
yeah,
super
yeah.
interesting.
That's cool.
I feel like you'd like it. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it made me watching this made me want to watch that episode again too. Yeah, it's interesting look into like
All right, maybe I'll
that
watch that
life.
later because I've been meaning,
Yeah,
in fact, to watch more Parts Unknown in general. So
that's a good
sounds
one.
like a good one to start with.
Yeah, that's a really good one. And Anthony Bourdain's like a huge Godfather fan too, so he knows a lot about it. But yeah, and this is when you you really find out how it's just so crazy how interconnected again like these families are with the old
Yeah,
country. Like
yeah,
they have plans set in place for like this scenario to happen. Or he has his own bodyguards
right,
and
right. He has like a
family that looks
Don to
after
hide
him.
out with out there who's looking for after him,
Yeah,
and and like when he wants to, ask the father of Apollina for marriage, like even though he says that like he's a wanted man, basically he tells him he's a wanted man, but the guy like can tell, like he knows how the crime world works, and he can tell he's with like a connected family, so he knows that'll be good for his family. So like
yeah,
even though he's offended at first, you can tell that like the way Michael carries himself and and through what he tells him, that just he knows his family can benefit. He knows this is like a good connection to have. So it's almost like kind of Michael Hughes doing like what Vito does and how he builds connections with people in
yeah,
America.
yeah. Right. Yeah, and then while all that's going on in Sicily, then back home, Sonny is showing his more aggressive side as usual,
Yeah,
and with
yeah,
Carlo and Connie.
right. Because there's that whole segment of like Carlo and Connie, like there's a violence
Yeah, that
issue, and
underlying
I've
issue there. Yeah,
yeah, and when I was watching this, I was always I was thinking, I'm like, what does this have to do with like the rest of the movie? And
right.
like my main like I don't know my main what I think it really has to do with like is just how it's very different for the women in this movie about men. You know,
Yeah,
just for women in this world, it's very very different.
yeah.
Like in
Basically,
the book,
putting up with the men and
right, right.
their world. They're just living in the men
Yeah, and like
world.
what
Yeah.
she's expected to do for her husband and what he's allowed to get away with and all this stuff. Um,
Mm.
in the book, she actually like goes, she comes back to her family with bruises, and Vito basically like ignores it and says like, well, then you should be a better wife. So Vito's just kind of like
Jesus.
being really shitty and sexist in the book about this
God.
whole thing. When the movie, it doesn't even, it's kind of implied that he doesn't know, and the only one, and like
Mm.
Sonny only finds out really by seeing her, and then so Sonny's like always pissed about it, that sort of thing.
Mm.
um yeah.
Yeah, and then comes the
uh
great
The
James
great
Caan
beat
scene where
ups.
he just
Yeah,
beats
yeah.
the shit out of him. Yeah,
Endlessly beats him up. Yeah.
the
It's
trash can and
very
everything.
it's
Yeah,
very just similar to when Henry Hill like walks across the street and just nails that guy in the head with
yeah,
his gun like 8 times in the road to the face. But
yeah,
Sonny does like he goes on for a while beating this guy just to the point where he's in the street.
yeah, yeah. To the point where Carlo then wants Sonny dead. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
that brutal.
Yeah. There's just like mafia stuff is like a lot. What it's really a lot about is like drama and family and about like just being human and stuff like that. But then there's
Hmm.
always the like violence that uh is just always it's just shocking. You know what I mean? Like it's just always that's always what it is. It's like just very shocking how violent it is, especially when you first see it. Like I rewatched Sopranos again like last year, and I just like every new like kill murder scene or fight scene, I would be like, holy shit,
My
like
God, yeah.
whoa. What about the gabagool? Like I thought we were having gabagool, and like now there's like just blood everywhere. There's some, yeah.
Yeah, I
So this is
that's
one of
what.
those scenes that for people like where it makes them do that for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it shows the stakes of everything is how violent these people are willing to get in order to yeah get what they want and intimidate. Um, and I mean, I guess I can't think of like what's all like intertwined between here, but this is basically what leads to then um Sonny getting murdered, getting shot a
Yeah,
billion times on the
yeah,
tollway,
yeah,
and yeah, and then and that's really what um, pushes Michael to becoming the next head of the family, as Vito is
yeah,
sort of in like retirement
yeah.
slash
Because
just phasing it out. Yeah,
yeah, and he's also like he's building his own life in Italy, and it's almost like this weird like I don't know this thing that wasn't even real. Once like his wife gets killed,
yeah,
and
he
he
gets
finds out about
married,
yeah, and he
married.
finds out about Sonny, and you could see he's like teaching her English and how to drive and all this stuff, and um yeah, I don't know, it's weird. It's like this almost weird possession that he ends up undertaking where it's like it's more about like just learning about where his dad came from and researching that sort of stuff, and it's just I don't know, it's so weird how like it's just this quick vignette of a like possible life that he could have had that he
Yeah,
would have if he was out there, but then he has to protect the family again.
yeah, yeah, and yeah. I mean, I guess this is what really has to happen in order to bring him back in a way. There has to be some sort
Yeah,
of
well, I think
violence.
they
But
also like they do something like with the police. They make some sort of deal with like either journalists, the police, or the courts or something, like just to make sure that his charges for the murder, like I
yeah,
think they frame someone else for the murder is what they do.
yeah, I think so too. And I think there's something about like the journalists or the would want to publicize something about a dirty cop getting killed. Like they're trying to
Yeah.
frame
Oh yeah.
frame the cop as not being a
Yeah.
good
Yeah, it's
guy
like
too, which is
they
true.
like it they talk about it being like a juicy story for the press.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And yeah, and then Vito calls together the five families for
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, because right, that's the thing right after Sonny gets killed. Yeah, I also love like I love the scene where Vito comes to talk to Tom, and he's like having a drink, and
Oh
he's
yeah.
stressed out because Sonny got killed, and he's like, all right, like I'm here. Things do not seem normal here right now. With like, just I'm listening downstairs. My wife is crying. Like, there's cars coming in and out. He's like, all right, tell me what's going on. But he says like specifically, he's like, I think it's time to tell your Don what everyone knows, and it's like it's really good. And then he tells him Sonny's been killed, and then that's when he cashes in on the favor from the opening scene, by bringing him into the funeral parlor. Like when I wish I knew this guy's name because he is a big character in this movie, but he's like known as like making it in a clean way in America with a good business. This is his business, so. It like lines up perfectly with the favor he needs, that Sonny got shot up so much that Vito is like, all right, I need you to fix him up so that my like wife doesn't see how fucked up our son got.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I guess this is where you see sort of, this is the, I don't know, just the like intelligent, like leader, businessman or whatever that Vito is, sort of making sure that everyone is like protected and will not, going completely overboard like Sonny would do in this scenario. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then and the meeting is also like along with probably the opening scene, maybe one of the most famous scenes in this movie, just because not only does it also have Marlon Brando in it, it's just like a huge thing to be a meeting of the five families. I think this movie, like as good as it is, it's like still like just that it's always that much better when like Marlon Brando's acting in it.
Yeah, definitely is. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know. It's such a, everything about his character, just totally takes over. A scene, just everything from his voice to his mannerisms, and
it's also unique and like odd that you're like, all right, well, this person has to exist in front of me right now because like you can't really make this shit up.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And it's not even one of those where he's giving like one of those famous, like iconic, like known as one of the best performance all time type performances where he's giving you like ridiculous emotion, like Daniel Day-Lewis like emotion and transformation either. It's more so just like this really like lovable yet like and kind of goofy yet very like dominant force of a person that he's playing. And just super enjoyable to be around. And there are moments where like just the look on his face too does make you tear up. And what's also funny about it is it just seems kind of like a role that Marlon Brando is just having fun with,
Yeah. That's why I don't think anyone could have done something as memorable as what he did. I think I was looking into like who. I guess Orson Welles really wanted to do, really wanted to be the Don, but Coppola was like all in on Brando. And I just feel like Brando is he's such a weird and interesting guy that he's the only one that could sort of make the character what he was and be this interesting and not just sort of like a generic like mob boss. Like he's not of this world in a way. Yeah, it's
right. What also is so crazy is that his sons are like his sons are other like legendary actors, but yet he is not only like old enough, like he wasn't even that old when he made this movie, but he was old enough to be like seem mature and wise and old, and like yet and also with like makeup and acting ability, he does seem like the actual father, like just been through it all, like over these guys who are, obviously the like Pacino was more so starting out when this movie got made, but still that is another like, greatest actor of all time, just like, but yet his, I like as good as Pacino is in this movie, I still think he's like overshadowed by Vito a lot.
Yeah. And even not being in it that much, like I think he's in the movie for like a total screen time of like 40 minutes or something like that.
Right. When
But he's
Michael's
still,
probably definitely the main character because he goes through so much. Like, still, he's not remembered or as iconic the way the Don is, who's probably the second main character, if anything.
yeah, yeah,
And there's,
and
if you ever like are on YouTube, check out. There's like, if you haven't seen them already, there's like interviews with where Coppola's talking about like getting Brando to do the role and like going up to his house and like talking to him about it. And it's like the weirdest, funniest story because like they kind of like filmed like I think they filmed like an audition tape. And so like Brando was just like trying things out in this audition tape, and it shows it's kind of, I don't know, it's like a very comedic, like just goofy, spontaneous like way that he kind of discovered how, like, how he was going to play this iconic role. Like,
wow.
it's like, I think he talks like this, like blah 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 because of that, like it's just like, yeah, it's pretty hilarious because like because he created such a memorable guy out of it.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. I was reading that he, like he did in other movies too. He didn't memorize his lines, so he just read them off
Yeah.
of cue cards or something, and because that's his like quirky way of feeling like it's more authentic, I guess, if he's
Right.
reading them for the first time. Yeah.
Yeah, there's an interview where Coppola says that his whole acting method is like based off the fact that he like doesn't know how to memorize lines, so he's always like pausing and like thinking of like his next line. And everyone reads it as like very dramatic, great acting. And
yeah, maybe he's really just been fooling us this whole time. Yeah.
right. But yeah, anyways, at the meeting, he has like a very long speech about like just making the peace and blah blah blah, and he's like, I'm a superstitious man. If anyone breaks the peace, I'm gonna blame people in this room. It's a pretty epic scene with just a lot of memorable lines and stuff. He's like, when would I ever refuse? When did I ever refuse accommodation? The attorney of you.
Yeah, even with like the meeting of the five families, he's still like, you just know, like, this is the guy out of all of these too,
Yeah, in the room.
Like he still has somewhat of control over the rest of the
Yeah,
heads of these
I mean this.
families.
Yeah, this is clearly the most unique man in this room.
Yeah. Everyone, when he talks, everyone listens. Yeah. And then I guess this is when Michael returns home.
Yeah, returns home and he goes to see Kay, and I think like he's been home for a while, just learning the business, pretty much. So and like
he had been home, but still hadn't seen her, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So she's like she's salty about that. And he comes like you could see on just the first shot he's there, like, all right, this guy's a gangster now. Like, look at the way he's dressed. He's got the hat on, he's got the suit, like he's fully formed gangster. And like the last time whenever they were together before, he was wearing like that army outfit. Like an army officer's outfit. So it's a very like jarring just change on just on how more polished and gangster and not as and less down to earth he looks.
Yeah, he changed a ton in a year because there's a lot changed in his life. But yeah, so it's just crazy that he would come back to Kay and she's still, she's obviously like not happy with him, but she's still wanting to be with him in a way after all.
Yeah, and I think he kind of has like a very like, I don't know, he kind of like tells her to come with, and like I don't know, just because he has that imposing now like boss like mentality, he's just able, he knows you could tell she kind of goes for it. She's like, she doesn't know what else to do.
And he has
she's like, he's very convincing
confidence too.
yeah he does. Yeah.
And Yeah, okay,
So yeah, she gets
then
in the car, um, and I think next, like, they're kind of going over the whole, I don't know, just the next steps of what's going on in the family
mm,
business. Like, you see Michael kind of running a meeting, and like Vito's just kind of walking around the office, like, being old, kind of like fooling around, looking out the window, stuff like that. Um,
mhm,
and like a lot, they don't like a lot of the things the guys are saying, like that Michael's saying, like his plans, like they're quitting the olive oil business, they're starting in Vegas, and um so they don't like that, I don't think. And then they go to Vito to, like, they're like, why are we doing this? He's like, here, you talk to Michael now, and so
mhm,
they don't fully still have his respect, even though he seems very like smart and calculated in the meeting. And then he also tells Tom now that he's no longer consigliere, he's going to be the head lawyer in Vegas.
mhm.
And then he says, he has that line where he's like, "Who's a better consigliere than my father?" Um,
Yeah, mhm.
yeah, and
Yeah, so you're seeing like the whole transition phase basically
mhm,
and how it's affecting everyone.
yep,
And yeah, and Michael's basically hitting the ground running. Uh
right,
already, planning all this Nevada business that they want to
yeah,
buy out buy out Mo, whatever his name
yeah,
is.
Mo Green,
Mo Green, yeah.
which is like,
Yeah.
it's kind of like a, I don't know, it's like something for money, you know what I mean? It's kind of like it's just funny that
Mo
his
Green,
name is
yeah.
Mo Green, and he's
Mo
the
Green, Mo
casino owner in
problems.
Vegas. Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. um
Yeah, and then
and
that's
so
the great
so
scene
when he's in Vegas, and
in Vegas, yeah.
yeah, and he's like, Fredo, he's like, don't ever take sides against the family again. And you really see Michael's like all, like, he's very cold now, he's very stern, and he's really about like tradition and family and stuff. And it's just like a mix of like all of the tragedy that's happened in the past like couple years, and the fact that he's like gone to Sicily. Like, it's just like it's, I don't know, like the movie's a lot also about like growing up and like your path and like what like shapes you as well. Because I think like
Yeah.
Michael is very young at the beginning, like at the beginning and end of this movie, and it's really
Hmm.
about like becoming who he, maybe not even what the movie's not even saying that's what he's meant or supposed to be, but like, I don't know, just becoming who he is.
Yeah. I mean, it focuses on him in like that age when that's when
Yeah,
you're
like it's really
supposedly,
key on how you're gonna be shaped.
yeah,
Yeah.
right, shaping your identity and everything, and that's exactly where this takes place, is through that like period of his life. Uh yeah, and then you see him becoming more like his father in a way too, and just like following in his footsteps in a way.
Yeah. And then like there's like kind of a final scene outside with Michael and Vito. They're like hanging by the
Hmm.
garden, and Vito's like, Vito, I like it. Like, Vito kind of has this, how his life changes. He goes from being a guy he's clearly doing a million things every day, and now he just wants to be, lazy and in a garden, and
Yeah.
like garden. He, like, I think like growing vegetables, like probably like Italian vegetables and stuff, like
Yeah,
peppers
some
and stuff like that,
tomatoes.
and
Yeah.
yeah, tomatoes, and he's like drinking wine out there and has like a hat and stuff. And he's all like relaxed now, but he's still like calmly advising Michael. And the scene opens, and Vito literally, like, his line goes something like, all right, and then like this guy will talk to this guy, and then they're gonna set up a meeting, and at that meeting you'll be assassinated.
Yeah, yeah. He's basically just telling him how he's gonna die, like exactly how. Yeah.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's like, oh, thank God he has his dad to you know give him
Yeah, and
like
I think it
the.
does go to, like, I still, having seen this movie a lot, like, can't remember everything, but it does, I think, go down like that after like someone tries to make a meeting with him at his dad's
Yeah,
funeral, and you see like Michael remembering like what his dad said, and now he's like, he doesn't like Tom used to be advising Vito, and like now like Michael's like, I don't know, Michael's kind of so in obsessed and invested in this game to the point where like he's like so far ahead that he's like telling Tom what his plans are. Like Tom's not even like aware of what's going on.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Well, and also in that final scene with Vito, he kind of like, I don't know, he has that last moment where he says he didn't want it to be like this for him,
right,
but
yeah.
he also asks him, he's like, how's your boy? He looks more like you every day. he's like he's like he's good, Pop. And he's like, how's your family? Do you like them? Like, I just love the way he asked that. He's like, are you happy with your family?
That's
Like,
just yeah, that's
they're good, Pop. And he just doesn't really know, like, you can tell he's like saying the right thing.
yeah,
But like, I don't know, I don't even feel like Michael gives a shit about his family at all. Like, I feel like he's just so into the business that like
yeah,
the family is very much just like a thing that you're supposed to do. Like, not only as a Sicilian or a guy like, and because this movie's about family, but like just also when as an adult in this world, like that's the next step as a man, and that's kind of why he gets K.
yeah, yeah. It's kind of like an afterthought. It's like, yeah, that's all fine, but yeah, but back to how I'm gonna get assassinated. Yeah, let's get
Yeah,
into that.
that's where, and then you'll be assassinated. And Michael doesn't even respond. It just like they just like leave it like that and move on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a great father son scene.
Yeah, and when you also notice him like he kind of repeats different things like questions and concerns that he has, and is like, "Did you take care of the thing with Clemenza or something like that?" He's like, "Yeah, I took care of it, Pop." He's like, "We talked about it." He's like, "Oh yeah, right." And he's like,
Yeah,
I'm sorry. So you can tell he's also not only like worried about like, I don't know, his son with all this responsibility, even though he clearly has a handle on it. It's also like losing just his memory basically. Like the man's kind of like he doesn't have much time left necessarily.
he's showing his old age that yeah he's sort of
Yeah.
disintegrating. Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, and then
He passes on in a very, I don't know, in a very like playful, like beautiful way.
yeah, it's almost like the way he like it's a nice way for him to go. It's like he's just playing in the
Right.
garden with his grandson, and he's not assassinated or anything. He's just
Right.
it's kind of like his time in a way, and yeah,
Yeah.
and he's just like that. It's showing him as like that joyful, like warm person
Right.
that was kind of
Right.
always there. But yeah,
And I think it juxtaposes very well how like you said the joyful like in the the goofy, and he has a clown side to him, and just the charm, and I think it just goes well with Michael's like, I don't know, cold like attitude, and just how Michael is not fun at all,
yeah,
like
yeah,
not a guy you want to be around at all. And so I like as we said that how there's like differences between the three sons. I like Michael clearly didn't get that side to his dad.
yeah, yeah. And maybe
And you
even
and
Vito sees like how Michael is now is similar to how he was,
right,
at his age too. And now he's at a point
yeah,
where he's realizing what, some of the more important things
right,
are
right,
as he's passing on.
right. So yeah,
Yeah.
then it's like the funeral of Vito, and then
Funeral and the
ooh, gotta charge my
baptism.
laptop.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh yeah, and then who's he
or
being the godfather to again? Is
this
it
is
Carlo and
Carlo
Connie's
and
kid?
Connie's son, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Who
yeah.
I'm pretty sure that baby is Sofia Coppola.
Oh yeah, because she
I
does
think
have a role in this, and that's the only possible one it could probably be.
Yeah, I was looking into that because I remember hearing something about how because like Nicolas Cage is also his nephew, and that maybe he was in it in like the wedding scene as like a little kid.
Oh,
Um,
I can see that because he's known. Yeah, he's related to the Coppolas. He's
yeah,
known for being around a lot.
and well, and yeah, I mean the Coppola family is like, insane how just I don't know how many of them are in Hollywood, like Jason Schwartzman,
Yeah, and are like
too, and
legendary people. Oh, Jason
yeah,
Schwartzman's related to the Coppolas.
yeah, his mom is Connie in
Oh
this
shit!
movie, his in real life mom, yeah.
Wow.
So Coppola's nephews are Nicolas Cage and Jason Schwartzman, and
So
then
Connie's related to the Coppolas too.
yeah, Connie is Coppola's sister.
Oh shit!
So even this movie is all like has
It's like
this
about the
family element
family
to it.
of
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's crazy.
Because I haven't looked recently like too much into this, but I'm pretty sure I thought I read something that like Nicolas Cage was an extra in the wedding scene as like a little
Yeah,
little kid,
yeah.
and then Sofia Coppola is the one getting baptized here in the end. Um, who
Have you ever heard about like how what a shit show like the making of this movie was?
I read a little bit into that. Um,
Yeah, it's like it
yeah,
was like I think like it was probably like as hard as like a director's had. It's probably most well known like director versus producer like
like
just
Paramount
going
had
at
a
it
lot of
constantly in a
issues.
movie. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They were like Francis had so much trouble and so we're just trying to deflect interference with people like yeah in the movie. And I think it goes much further than that too.
Yeah, there's probably a million stories that aren't even like out there that
Yeah.
that happened. That's
Yeah,
right.
it's
Coppola
just
is like
funny.
insane. I don't know how he
Right.
like hearing stories about like this and Apocalypse Now. It's just like
Yeah.
why would you ever want to be like this type of movie director? It seems like the worst. You have to deal with Marlon
Yeah.
Brando being super difficult, and then all this like filming shit that goes
Yeah.
wrong in the studio. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if there was a Godfather Heart of Darkness documentary, it would be like maybe not as crazy because of like the the idea of just like living in the Philippines, and that how he's like hosting a whole crew in the Philippines thing, but I think it would have as much drama probably if not more.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's I
Yeah.
did also read that Coppola's cut of this movie was just a little bit over 2 hours, and the studio like demanded him that he make it closer to 3 hours, which I feel
Mm.
like almost never happens, that the
Yeah,
studio
they
is
want it to be
asking.
longer. Yeah.
Yeah, and the director's cut, like the Snyder cut, was like 4 hours or something for
Yeah,
Justice League.
yeah, I
Yeah,
know. That's what we're used to in this era of Snyder cuts.
yeah, yeah. It's such a interesting thing. Um,
Yeah. So I guess we were on the funeral, and he's gonna be a godfather
mm,
uh, to the kids, which I think is also another thing that is spoofed is like the creepy like mafia side of like being the godfathers to someone's kids also means you're like a murderous psychopath.
yeah, yeah, right, yeah. Yeah, it's even the baptism scene is like very creepy. Just like the
Yeah.
haunting church music,
Hmm.
and it's just very dark and eerie
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
chapel. Yeah.
I think also like how like Brando makes the peace earlier. I
Hmm.
feel like he was they show him later talking, I think Tom, and I think strategically in his head, he knows it's like a move he has to make for now. But like I think he has this like plan in his mind and probably conspired it with Michael about like basically murdering all of them pretty
Yeah, yeah.
much. And like Michael
Had to.
just
Yeah,
carried it out when after he passed away.
yeah.
So
And
I think it's
that's
just like perfect how it follows up his death almost. Because in the
mhm.
end, like even though like Vito kind of makes the peace and then he like retires and he's all comfy, outside outdoors all day, you still like kind of remember like, oh yeah, he's still kind of won in the end and kind of kept himself in power
Yeah, really.
through his sons, but still.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then just the assassinations of all the like you said in the beginning. Like when I first watched this, I was not sure what the significance of everyone who they
Yeah,
were
I was
killing.
not following at all. Yeah, and I didn't get the obvious like symbolism of someone like saying, "Do you renounce Satan?" And I do renounce him, and then it goes like, "No," and the guy
Yeah,
just gets murdered.
the
Like it's
next
such a great cut, the way the music comes. It's like, "No," and it's like, "I do renounce him."
even the way he says I renounce him is like evil almost. It's like
Yeah, well,
it's like
and his face and the lighting. I mean,
yeah.
if Godfather Part 2, that's the whole movie. It's just his dark face in this like really terrifying lighting and
Yeah. It's
just being the scariest man ever.
yeah, it's basically the moment he's fully like it's like the full transition. Like Michael is
Right.
the Godfather, like, obviously.
Yeah. And he kills them all. And then it's so good that it goes down during this baptism scene.
Yeah.
I'm a real sucker for any like Catholicism mafia shit. So, that being said, I love Martin Scorsese also. Yeah, if you guys didn't know. But yeah. So then he brings Carlo back to the house and pretty much like scares the shit out of him. And really plays him in a really like smart but very dark way.
Yeah, even convincing him, well, who knows how
that he's going to be
like
he's going to live.
Yeah, he's just going to go to Vegas and be fine. That's the whole that's I don't know how all these, just with watching, mafia things throughout the years, like everyone, like, it's not going to be that easy. Like, just this meeting with him, or
Right.
it's seemingly going to be okay for what he's done and everything. It's definitely not. And yeah, it goes right in the car, and then he's strangled. Yeah.
Yeah, and Michael kind of says to him before they say he's sending him to Vegas. He's like, don't insult my intelligence. It makes me very angry. And he's just like so scary.
Yeah, he's now speaking in like that same way of like he is in charge. He's not.
Yeah.
Just the way he speaks is so much different from the beginning when he's just sort of this innocent young guy. Yeah.
And you could see how scared of him Carlo is too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so then Connie, played by apparently Coppola's sister, I now know, rushes into the house saying that he killed him, and Kay's like here's one of my there's not a lot of flaws in this movie really, but like one of my quarrels with it is sometimes Diane Keaton, because not only do I not think Diane Keaton's, I think she's not that great in this movie, but I also think that her character could be just written a little bit better, because she has lines she has lines earlier where she's like, Michael, real businessmen don't have men killed, just like things like that, where she just kind of sounds stupid. And
it's almost like she's supposed to be like portrayed as like clearly an outsider to all of this, but it's almost like she's like too dumb, like she could be smarter than this.
Exactly. But the movie, it does leave you at least with her being like, all right, like she, like all her suspicion is gone. She kind of sees him in the frame of who he is, and like she kind of knows in that scene that he is doing bad things. But like she gets like pretty easily convinced when Michael gets he gets mad, and he's like, he kind of yells in a way like later Pacino would yell, like where he's like, it's like, don't ask me about my business, like that type of, it comes out kind of like that. he's like, one time I'm gonna let you ask me about my affairs. Um, and he's like, one time, and he's kind of being really unreasonable in that scene,
Yeah, yeah,
like to his wife.
yeah.
And she's like, "Is it true?" She just keeps asking if if he murdered his sister's husband. He's like, "No, it's not." And she's like, "Oh yes, Michael." Like she just falls for it, like right away.
Come on, lady. Yeah. And even that whole time Connie is like screaming at him, he's just like sitting there, straight face, like not reacting at all.
Yeah. But it does, like, even as ridiculous as it is sometimes with Kay in that scene, it does lead to the perfect ending where she walks out, like grabs tea and then just sees him in the room. And this is another thing that's like spoofed a bunch, where like just that like through the door shot of him, like, you know, getting his hand kissed and people calling him Godfather. Yeah. And then the door closes and boom, you got there the best movie of all time, covered by the Cinebums, baby.
Yeah. How about that ending? We're shutting the door on you. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Like, man, Luca Brasi's still been your picture this whole time.
Yeah, he is. Hopefully that's not too offensive to anyone, but it's this, I think, is the most iconic shot from this movie. Out of all the iconic shots I could pick, it's this one. Yeah.
It's our goriest episodes. High body count. Yeah, man, love this movie. I mean, I think it's worthy of being considered best of all time. I like get it, because it's like there's so much mainstream like accessibility about it, and like it has themes that are very accessible to people. Would I necessarily say, like, if you had to ask me if I think it's the best movie of all time, would I say it is? Not, I don't know, probably not necessarily, but it is just, there are many times when I'm watching, I'm like, wow, that was also very well done, that scene, like holy shit. And like and it is like super iconic, and just I don't get enough of it that much, so you know, it's obviously very, very, very good.
Yeah, it is. And it's even, you know, when I sat down to watch it, I was like, oh, okay, I got to be ready for this, you know, 3-hour movie. Gotta really hunker down. And I don't want to like look at my phone. I want to be in this. And and then just when it starts, it's like, it's not, it just keeps my attention the whole time. It's just that it's that good and that interesting. And I don't know how you feel about the sequel. I tend to like, I've only seen Godfather 2 once, I guess, but I prefer the first one, and I think just because it like encapsulates like the whole family dynamic,
right,
of the whole story, more so. But
so I here's what I have to say about that. I watched the first one, the second one in the winter while my family was upstairs with COVID. I was in the basement going like, where's my family?
I need my family. The actual family.
Yeah. I watched the Godfather 1 and 2 like in back-to-back days, and this is the first time while watching Godfather 2 I like not only understood, but I probably like agreed with like that whole idea of Godfather Part 2 being better than this movie. I don't think they're necessarily like things that should be compared, because they're so different. But when I watched Godfather 2 last time, I was kind of like, holy shit, this movie's insane. This is incredible. Like what, like the dramatic just tension and everything in it is just it's so, the Godfather 2 is so good. But it's such a different film. It's more like, you know, it's like, it's also like one of Pacino's best roles. So, and I feel like even though you see him play, you know, like really, you know, have the change in Michael down in the first one, I still think he's taking it to another notch in the second one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's when he's really like, he's Al
Yeah.
fucking Pacino. Like he's a
Yeah. And
big
there's
deal. Man.
like new like there's like sets in the Godfather 2, like the house on the lake in Godfather 2 and just stuff like that. And like Fredo is incredible in it too.
Mm-hmm.
Um yeah, I mean if you wanted to talk about Godfather 2, I'd be down
Yeah,
uh eventually. I mean, I will also say it's more of a bummer than this movie, but
yeah.
it's quite the bummer, but it's like, one of those really good ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely need to watch again.
Yeah, it's fun to
Yeah.
follow it up with. And I actually, for the first time this year, watched The Godfather Part 3. I've seen the Coda now. I watched the Coda, the one that Coppola like put out this year.
I want to see that one too, so I've seen the Godfather Part 3 last year. I like passively watched on TV while I was at my parents' house,
Right.
and I just wasn't like super into it, mainly because I wasn't like I was doing other stuff, while
Yeah.
I just had
Yeah.
it on. But then I heard about like the coda and everything.
Right.
It's like how Coppola like intended it or something, and
Right.
yeah,
Right.
definitely wanna try and see that too.
I will say for me personally, I have never seen the original Godfather 3. I just watched Coda, but having only seen Coda, I don't know how much Coda is actually different from the original because I still found it to be like I was like, wow, this is really disappointing. Like, what a waste. So I wouldn't like push yourself to watch it necessarily. I think you should probably see it eventually because you're so invested already in like the first two movies, but it's kind of like damn. Especially with how perfect the first two are done, and like
Yeah.
the third one's just kind of like a flawed movie.
Well, maybe I'll just passively watch that one too while
Yeah, just like put it
doing
on while
chores.
doing your stuff.
Yeah. Here, I also wanted to. So this is just coincidence, and Red Letter Media, they did a video like a couple weeks ago on Bram Stoker's Dracula, which
Oh, nice. Which we talked about one time.
We talked about that like a couple years ago. Yeah, yeah. So I'm not copying them. We also have had this, but I
Is that
also
the director's cut?
I sipped on some Coppola wine while watching it too, and yeah, and this is almost like Coppola now. He's like the wine guy. He's like
it's like Vito.
late in life.
Yeah, it is. It's very autobiographical like that. Yeah, that's the director's cut, right?
This
or is that
this
a different one?
Diamond Collection.
Maybe that's a different one.
Yeah. I think Carly bought this one. If it were me, I would have bought the director's cut though. But yeah.
Since I respect cinema.
Yeah, it's clearly she didn't know what she was doing.
I respect the cinematic quality of my wine.
Yes, exactly.
The mise en scène in the director's cut is totally different from the grapes in the Diamond edition.
So it wasn't the greatest experience drinking this while watching The Godfather, but it
wasn't what it could have been. Yeah.
Yeah, it sufficed, but yeah.
You still did it right though. I've watched Coppola movies a couple times and drank his wine.
Yeah, it's like for our when we did our Drunk Departed episode, I had Irish whiskey,
Yeah. I also, in the middle of like before this movie started, I like was watching my Criterion copy of The Naked Kiss because I was you know how we say we need to watch our Criterion movies more. I was like, God damn, I gotta like finally watch my copy of The Naked Kiss, and so I was like drinking like wine during that, and then I got like hungry, and I started to want to watch The Godfather and eat pasta. So I made pasta during The Naked Kiss in order to prepare for starting The Godfather.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah. So I ate it in pretty good fashion too. I watched the movie, in pretty good fashion too.
That's a great way to watch too. Yeah. Wow. What a night that was. Yeah.
What a night for me. Yeah.
Yeah.